This interview on November 2nd, 2013, is part of an oral history of the West Chicago Public Library District Project. My name is Crystal Quasman, and I am a member of the Committee for the History of the West Chicago Public Library District. Today, I will interview Steve Truedt. Thank you, Steve, for your time.
Sure.
My first question is, how long have you been a resident of West Chicago?
All my life. I was born in 1951, and I've been here pretty much all of that time.
Wonderful. Can you tell me, the interview is about the history of the West Chicago Library. Can you share with us some of your earliest and fondest memories?
Well, yeah, I guess as a kid, the library was the place to go to study. You know, I think as a kid growing up here on the north side of town, I went to Turner School. I think I probably used the library as I got into the higher grades, you know, of public education, perhaps 5th, 6th grade. It was and higher. It was a good place to go to study because it was nice and quiet.
Mm-hmm. And your first location would be on East Washington. Is that correct? Before.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That was it was such a neat looking building. I don't think I ever used the children's library downstairs so much. I think I started using the library when I was a little bit older and could ride my bike down there and study there. And you know, I think I wasn't a huge reader when I was a kid, but I did, somewhere along the line, I discovered and enjoyed the writings of like Mark Twain and like the cynicism or the sarcasm and the wit and the humor with that. And the library had a good collection of Twain back then. Later on, I think when I got into junior high school, there was a new junior high school in town, and they had an extensive library, and we used that more. But still used the library on Washington Street to go and study. It was just it was a quiet place,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Steve, in researching and coming to sit down with you, it's quite apparent that your family, there's long history in our community and business. You have a business that's well over 100 years old. So from great-grandfather to grandfather to father, mm-hmm. I'm sure there's some wonderful things that you can share with us.
Oh, probably more than the time allotted for sure, but there is you know, my great grandfather came here in 1911 and purchased the existing newspaper, and his background was as a typesetter for the Peoria Sentinel, and mm-hmm. so reading and writing was part of it was just part of what this family did. It continued with my grandfather and right through with my father, and then my brother and I own the company today. We don't have the newspaper business anymore, but we continue with commercial printing, and it's a family-owned business that's 102 years old as of this interview. My father was an avid reader, and that was really, he set a good example for all of us at home, and used the public library here even up until just before he died. He loved to read and had an extensive library. What can I tell you? He was, you know, we were in the newspaper business in town here. My great grandfather purchased the West Chicago Press, and it was a family business here until 1979 when my father sold the newspaper. I have great memories as a kid. If you want to talk about, you know, being influenced, and particularly in the field of literature and storytelling, Saturday mornings at the West Chicago Press back in the 1950s and even into the early 1960s. Saturday mornings was a meeting place for a lot of different community characters, including local politicians as well as local clergy and historians and everything else. Mm-hmm. And they would sit around this coffee table, and it was supposed to be a 15-minute coffee break, but it would turn into an hour and a half discussion about local politics and national politics, community events, and all sorts of things. There were great stories that crossed that table, and as a kid, I would quietly, in the background, be sweeping the floors, but listening to every word that was said, and I wish to this day that I had what you're holding in your very hand.
Yes.
I wish I had a tape recorder, because there were wonderful stories.
Right.
And, so that really kind of led the way for me and my brothers as far as wanting to know more about the stories and being involved in the community. It just gets under your skin, and it becomes and it flows through your veins.
Right. And your family's been very involved throughout the years. I'm aware of that. And you were very much an advocate of the referendum in needing a bigger library and having the new facility.
Absolutely.
We have now.
I think when I was in high school, I didn't really use the community library that much. It still was a good place to go and study, but it was inadequate. And it wasn't until a number of years later, obviously in 1992, and I was so thrilled to see the library expand into the building that it is today. The programs are far more extensive than they ever were, which is a wonderful thing. The other really important thing is that they kept the library in the downtown area, which makes it an anchor in the downtown area and keeps the community center in that location.
That's a beautiful point.
I think it's a wonderful thing.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we were chatting earlier, you and I, about your father, and I'm sorry that we didn't have an opportunity to interview him in person. But you had said how he utilized our library up until the end, and they had specific books that he needed. Could you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. Well, let's start. When he was a kid, he used the library, which I think was where the old city hall was, and went on from there. But with the current library, even as an older gentleman whose sight wasn't and vision wasn't as good as it used to be, he used the large print books. He frequently got large print books from the library, as well as, since he had retired to a home in Kentucky and would make a drive back and forth between West Chicago and Kentucky Lake frequently, he used books on tape extensively, and I think he used the library more than the rest of his family.
Well, it's
together.
I think, and it's a great gift, and I think that's marvelous that he used it to that extent, and we could offer him when he was in need specific books.
Absolutely. The other thing too I want to mention about the new library. I call it the new library. I know it's what is it? Nearly 20 years
we've
old
just
now.
Celebrated 20 years.
Okay. When I have a daughter that's 22 years old now, but when she was growing up, fortunately that library was built shortly after she was born, and my wife took her to that library frequently when she was young and got involved in the programs there, used them extensively. My daughter consumes books. She's an avid reader as well, and I attribute a lot of that to her exposure to literature and books because of my wife and taking her to the West Chicago Public Library. We were so thrilled that it was the facility that it became.
Exactly, and it's a gift to the community for sure.
Absolutely. Another thing I wanted to mention about the library on Washington Street when I was there was it was a really pleasant atmosphere because it seemed more like a home than a public building. It had a fireplace. There were fireplaces at either end, and it was really beautiful. The librarians, Alice Colford, I remember being a librarian, and I can't recall the name of the other woman, but to me they were kind of like the shush police. Their job was to make sure you kept quiet,
Mm-hmm.
and respectfully so.
And I think that's interesting. You mentioned that it felt like home because the building, and it is not overtly commercial in look. When we first moved out here, and I always refer to it as the little brick bungalow.
Yeah.
I think it does have some charm and
Oh,
character, but we outgrew it. We outgrew
Yes, we
it.
did.
But that's interesting that we had that connection and the homey feel. Well, this has been extremely interesting. I can't thank you enough. We, the committee and the library, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and meeting me here. And Steve, this has been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. My heart's in this community, as is yours, obviously, and
Yes.
everybody else that's involved. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.